can start.
Okay.
What year you started writing?
Um, I'm not sure exactly of the year. I think I was about 12. Um, and one of my books, I don't have it out here, but one of the books is called Blossoms, and it just is a theme book. I mean, poems that have flowers in them. And I put the very first poem that I have a copy of, I think was 1956 or 7, something like that. I put at the beginning of the book because the poems are in chronological order. Now, it's not a good poem, but I was like 12 years old, and it's,
Studying.
yeah, and you start somewhere. And since it was the earliest one that I still had a copy of, I just thought historically it would be interesting to do that. But this right now, this spring is the 60th anniversary of the publication of my first poem.
Wow.
60 years ago, I had a poem in print for the first time. I mean, that makes me feel old. So I've been around, yeah, I've done this for a long time.
Yes, you've done this for a long time.
Yeah.
When when did you move to California?
6 years ago.
Just 6 years ago.
Yeah. I, I grew up in Elyria, Ohio. I actually was born in California. I was born in Monterey, but Dad was in the service. We didn't. Mom, there were problems, and we had to go home. So I was in Monterey for 2 weeks, and then moved to Ohio. Grew up in Ohio. Had a career ultimately as a rare book librarian at Kent State University. Took an early retirement there. Moved to Santa Fe in 1994, I think. And then I was in Santa Fe for 22 years. And then I just needed a change. And so I came here 6 years ago.
Nice. What do you feel that there are differences of how you perform as a writer depending on the place you are?
I don't think so. I think where you are has a sort of resonance in your work, and some places are better than others. And I certainly get inspired, if that's still a useful word, by places. But I just have this feeling that you are what you are, and if you're a poet, you're a poet, and you do it no matter where you are.
Good answer. um, who did you admire growing up? Who do you admire now as well?
Well, a lot of the early poems you can tell who I was reading because they're knockoffs. I mean, I have my E. Cummings poem, my Ferlinghetti poem, my Hart Crane poem, my Marianne Moore poem. All these people were important to me at a certain time. Some continue to be, and others not so much. And as for people now, I don't read as much as I used to. I don't keep at the game, I guess. So I don't really have. I mean, sometimes I dip back into other people, like I was reading Marianne Moore again the other day. So that's been a long arc, of someone like that who you can still go to, and she was such a master at wordcraft that even if you think you know her, there are new things. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay. What? Let me think. Let me think. Let me think. Let me think. What am I asking you for next? Do you feel that the sexual energy in California and the way that people present themselves affects your work in order to be more open, or you think it does the contrary?
That's an
I
interesting
feel I feel
question.
there's a lot of sexual energy lately. In the last few years, there's been a lot of sexual energy like on the rise. That sometimes it becomes too much. Sometimes I don't know. That's how I perceive it. How do you perceive it here?
Well, I think Palm Springs has always had that kind of vibe, and I know when I was just visiting here, the poems that I wrote were quite often charged. But that was also because I was staying at clothing optional resorts. And I mean, you just like go, ooh, and it's,
Sex.
it's, but I've never shied away from that subject matter. I mean, I think if anything, with age, it becomes bolder and more blatant, perhaps even. Where earlier on in the work it was much more veiled. And again, it's if if you have the gift, the gift is there, and you do what, basically the poems. I don't say they write themselves. That sounds corny, but it's there, and it comes out when it wants to come out, kind of thing, you know. And so, if I write about sex, that's fine, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no.
It's just the idea and then the flow of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's how you work. That's how you feel you work. You just get one idea and then boom, let it flow.
I I tend to, yeah, things are constantly clicking in my head, and sometimes they, when that happens, I know, okay, get out the paper, and you just sort of sit there, and one thing after another, and suddenly you've got a poem. I tend now not to do a lot of rewriting. The stuff is comes, and I fuss with it a bit. It's not like I'm against rewriting, but I'm not an academic poet who will spend 3 months polishing their sonnet. I just I've been there, I've done that. That's not who I am.
No.
And so, if the kind of stuff I write is sometimes too casual for people, that's fine. They can take it or leave it. That's not of interest to me.
Well, there's nothing wrong with casual poetry. Actually, casual poetry is always, I don't know, you get the most fun or the most outrageous sometimes out of that when people start thinking
Yeah.
or overproducing it. It becomes
Yeah.
too.
And I think some of the, I don't want to use the word tricks because that's a bad connotation, but some of the things that can go into work that you've learned at one point, you don't realize, like I can do a slant rhyme, or it's just because it's there in my head, and so I'm working at it, and I'll kind of like say the line and then write it, and quite often it turns out to be a little more complex than I thought, only because that's all part of me now. It was part of the learning process. So I don't think about it. So it seems perhaps more casual to me than it really is, only because I've come to that point in my work.
When did this happen? Like, we all have clicks in the way we connect with our artistry
Mm-hmm.
through the years. What is the last click you had when it's like, oh look, I'm writing something, I'm writing differently, I'm doing this is just not the way it was. When's the last time that happened to you, if you recall?
I don't.
You think
I think,
it changes go gradually?
well, again, I think it's that whole maturing process, both as a writer and as a person. And there's a time, I mean, like, obviously, when I was in grad school and we were studying all these people, that seeped into the work a lot because it was constantly on your head. But kind of like what I was saying before is you take this from that poet and this from that poet, and I'm not sure anymore always exactly what I took from whom, and
Yes.
so I can't say, oh, I stopped writing this kind of poem in 1992. I have no idea. I sort of have become the voice that I am gradually, and now it's here, and it is what it is.
You think the voice is louder today?
It's more confident.
Yes.
Yeah.
Experience.
Yeah, yeah. Experience both both as a person and as a writer. Some of the writing mistakes you make, you really learn from, and again, it's just part of the process because you did learn something. You don't make that error again or whatever that was, and sometimes they're not even mistakes. They're not you. It's something that you did that's just not part of the voice. And so that happens. And occasionally when I rewrite, it will be that. I'll say, well, that's not right. That just doesn't sound right
Yeah.
because it's not me. I mean, it may be perfectly fine, but it's just not me.
Could be grammatically correct, say something interesting, but just not
Yeah, yeah,
from the heart,
yeah.
from within. Um, which I see happening a lot in California sometimes.
Mm.
The not from within, the superfluous part.
Oh. Well, there's a whole, but I don't think that's just California.
That's true.
I mean, they could have a white party in North Dakota.
That's true. They do.
I've been to 49 states. North Dakota's the only state I've never been to.
49 states out of the 50.
Yeah.
And you lived in New York as well?
No, everyone thinks I did.
You do have a New York thing to you.
Well, I'm kind of, I mean, some people could stretch it and put me in the second generation New York school because of the Franco Herrick influence and all that sort of stuff. But I went to New York so often. When I was in Ohio, we could get on a plane after work on Friday, fly up, do Friday night, all day Saturday, sometimes all day Sunday, and I'd fly back in the god early morning on Monday and make it back to work. So I had those weekends so often that I had a whole group of friends, and I knew poets and artists and things, and so I wrote about all that. And so that's why a lot of people think I lived in New York, but I never actually did.
Um, you were working in a newspaper at some point?
No, my undergraduate degree was in journalism, but then I went into English for a master's, and I was working on a PhD, which I never finished. But when I decided that I didn't want to go to school anymore and just wanted to do my own stuff, I got a job with Kent State University in the public relations department. And so I worked as a journalist there because I would cover events and I would write press releases and all that kind of stuff. So that was as close as I got. And and before that I did a journalism internship 1 year at General Tire in Akron, Ohio. So I have some kind of newspaper experience, but never was really a journalist. Yeah.
Not by practice, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because I always see you posting these pictures with great people that you've met through the years. You've been to quite a few parties with a lot of interesting, famous names of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Did you find inspiration through running into these artists, famous artists, at the time? Was it value? Was it something of value for you?
I have always resonated with artistic people, so I always had around me friends who were artists and actors and writers. And so when I went to New York and got into some of those circles, it was just like the same thing. It's just that they were famous. You know, the people that I was running around with in Kent. I mean, that doesn't have any make. It's not a value judgment. I mean, it was good work, and they were some very serious people.
Yeah.
But fame is a very odd thing, and you don't know who gets it and who doesn't get it. And but I never. I had star fucking moments, but it was not for that. Like some people really are. That's their whole reason for being, I think. And I always kind of enjoyed that vibe, but I liked people for who they are and what they did. You know, and there are some famous people you meet that are real shits. So it doesn't, but there are also some very nice people that I've met over the years, you know, and some friends have been closer than others. Some are, you know, very fleeting, but that doesn't mean that they weren't important.
Yeah. Well, but also, yeah, and it also, I mean, it has to do with the mobility that you have. That the part of going places like going to New York. I'm sure you escaped to LA a lot at some point. I don't know.
I did LA a lot because of the film stuff. I mean, film is I probably loved movies long before I knew what a poem was as a kid, and film has always been with me. And as you can see by my work, I've got lots of Hollywood-inspired books. So again, I've never lived in Hollywood, but I will someday because I've already bought my niche at Hollywood Forever. And if you go there, I've got a poem in there that you can see. And
Oh, I did not know that. I've been to Hollywood Forever quite a few times.
I'm around the corner from Valentino. Yes.
Okay, I know where Valentino is in the Hollywood Forever.
Yeah, yeah, I'm in there. And well, when I got my niche, I decided, you know, I should do something with it now. So I wrote this poem. It's called "Kiss My Glass," and I wrote it out, and it's there. And the best thing about it is, I'm not there yet, and I'm not ready to go,
You're far from
but
it.
I'm enjoying it, you know, because I have had strangers who have seen that and taken pictures of them kissing the glass and send it. I mean, they find me on Instagram or Facebook, and I've had several people that have, and I thought, hot damn, I did something right. You know, it was just again, it's like one of my art pieces, you know, and the fact that I could enjoy it while I'm still here means a lot to me, you know, and so I love the fact. But anyway, I don't even know where we started on this.
I don't know, but I
on
was
that
not
journey.
expecting that, and that was fabulous.
I don't know where we were going with that, but
I don't know. No, I don't know either, but that was very good. No, I was. Then what it was. What I did say.
oh, you asked me if I went to LA much.
Yeah. Do you? So the Hollywood inspiration was obviously important. Was obviously present. Who was your favorite actor or actress when you were a kid? When you were 12 and you were starting to write, what were the faces or voices that you were like, oh, look at that?
Well, probably ones that most people would consider a little more frivolous now, like Betty Grable and Carmen Miranda. Just loved that. But I also got into the character people. I mean, I adored Thelma Ritter. I thought she was the greatest character actress ever in the history of Hollywood. And this one little book called Percy and Bess, there's poems about a character actor named Percy Helton, and then Bess Flowers was called Queen of the Dress Extras, and she was like in 1,000 movies. And it's all almost become a game. You know, she's in a party scene. Occasionally she'd have a line, but usually she was just dancing or at a cocktail party or something. But as a kid, that just fascinated me. You know, I said, there she is. There she is. Who is that woman? And I had to find out who she was. And then all these years later, I write about her. You know, and I found a book that, a paperback that had like little synopses of movies. And when I was looking through that, I had written in one of them, you know, Percy Helton's name. And again, most people who are film people will know him by looks, but they probably won't know his name. But as a kid, I looked all that stuff up, and I knew all that stuff. And I'd go to the library. That was in the days when we went to libraries, you know, and looked in the books of the histories of film and studied all this stuff. And it was just overwhelming. I mean, it became a whole life to me then, which in so many ways I've just carried on to now.
And it shows.
Yeah.
For those of us who know you.
Yeah.
Little,
Yeah.
yes, it shows.
Yeah.
That's excellent, I think. I was thinking, I'm gonna pause this for a little bit. I wanna ask you, do you wanna read the poem you sent me? In front of the microphone? Do you want, you can read it, or actually I can read it, I don't mind reading it. But I would rather.
It won't, but the interview is going to be transcribed and on paper, right?
Yeah, but I want to keep it on audio as well.
Oh, okay. No,
we may use the voice sometimes. Put a clip on the voice of the reciter.
Oh, I could. You want to pause this and I'll get it
Yeah.
and read?
Yeah. I think.
There are mornings sipping coffee on my patio when I wonder if this will be my last day. But more often, I'm so awash with words I have no time for mortality. All I am surges into birthing a poem, and that makes me so alive I join the birds in flight. We cannot consider the end when there are still songs to sing.
That's a beautiful poem. I love that you share that for this. And I love it because I feel it so almost painfully current.
Well, it was particularly current for me because I wrote it on the 13th of April, which was
A month ago.
About 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks before my birthday. And I was 79, which means that the next day I started my 80th year of life, and I cannot frickin' believe that.
Well, the good thing is that you look wonderful, you feel wonderful, and your brain still produces great work. Great conversation for all of us who know you a little bit and have the chance to spend time with you. So age becomes irrelevant.
But yeah, I don't think about age much. It's just that this one was a little bit of a gut punch. You know, even though the actual 80th birthday is a year away, but you do, you know,
Start living your age.
your first birthday, you've done 1 year, so you're starting your second year. So I'm into my 80th year of life. That's just hard to believe, but you know.
But it's all about, again, it's about experience, not about the years.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And you have a lot, and you've been sharing a lot. So, thank you, Alex Gildzen.
Thank you, Henry.
And this was a lovely interview, and it's always great to spend a morning or an afternoon with you because there's always some fun conversation around. And today is May 18th, right? Or May 19th?
19th, I think. Already.
It's May 19th, 2022. And we're wrapping this interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you.